Hello everyone, I'm CJ Wellerman. Don't forget to click the subscribe button below and please help keep our show going and growing by supporting my journalism at patreon.com/CJ Wellerman. Now let's get into it. Qatar is the first Muslim country to host the once in every 4 years FIFA World Cup, which is not only driving Islam haters mad with envy and hate, but also putting Western hypocrisy towards human rights in the Middle East on full display. The 32-team tournament, which kicks off next week, is being seized upon by every white Western morality cop to virtue signal woke attitudes, which in reality often tend to be overtly racist, chauvinistic, and Islamophobic. Now let's start with the country of my origin, Australia. Its national football team became the first at the tournament to make a public stand against Qatar's human rights record, when it released this video last month.
It is for these reasons we must speak about the situation in Qatar.
Over the last 2 years, we have been on a journey to understand and learn more about the situation in Qatar.
We are not experts, but we have listened to groups such as Amnesty, FIFA, the Supreme Committee, the International Labour Organization, FIFPro, and most importantly, the migrant workers of Qatar.
My God, the smugness and audacity is too much to bear, because what right does Australia have to shove human rights abuse allegations down the back of another country's throat, given Australia is a serial human rights violator? This is a country that helps Israel cover up its human rights abuses at the United Nations. This is a country that sold Myanmar military weapons as it was committing genocide against Rohingya Muslims in 2017. This is a country that illegally detained tens of thousands of Middle Eastern refugees throughout a network of concentration camps in the South Pacific Ocean. Yes, concentration camps, where abuse was so brutal, deliberate and systematic that dozens committed suicide.
This was the first world government inflicting this type of conditions on people seeking protection, even small children who were trying to self-harm, who were trying to suicide because of the despair they were suffering, lack of medical treatment for people with serious heart conditions, kidney conditions, almost daily abuse that they're getting, physical threats, sexual threats, sexual assault, people who'd reported attempted rapes to us. It just went on and on and on.
But here's the thing. If the Australian football team feels so strongly about Qatar's human rights abuses, then it should prove its commitment to its moral position by boycotting the tournament and staying home. Otherwise, sit down and shut up. Okay, so now we come to France, a country that hates its Muslim citizens more than any of its Western peers. Last week, a French newspaper depicted the Qatar national team as a bunch of crazed terrorists, proving once again the racist double standard that exists between Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. I mean, under French law, this newspaper would have been shut down, with its editors thrown into prison, had they published an anti-Semitic cartoon showing the Israeli football team to be greedy, money-obsessed loan sharks. Several French cities, including Paris, have also announced they will not broadcast the World Cup on large public television screens to protest Qatar's mistreatment of migrant workers. Wait a second. France actually believes it holds the moral high ground when it comes to the treatment of migrants? That's interesting.
They've ended up in Calais in search of a better life, only to have their dream shattered. 9 months after the so-called jungle camp was pulled down, aid workers tell Euronews that migrants are living through hell. It comes in the wake of a Human Rights Watch report, which claims French police routinely abuse them, including with pepper spray.
And let's not forget that France created many of these Middle Eastern refugees by bombing and destabilizing Muslim countries during the US-led war on terror, including Iraq, Libya, and Mali. Then there's also the legacy of French colonialism, which exacted untold horrors on Arab and African populations during the previous century. But France wants you to believe Qatar is the bad guy. But that said, and to be perfectly clear, the mistreatment of migrant workers in Qatar is a real issue. Nobody is disputing that, not even the Qatari government, which has openly acknowledged that some of the criticisms made against it are legitimate, and it has responded by introducing a raft of labour reform laws.
واعتبرنا أن بعض النقد إيجابيا ومفيد يساعدنا على تطوير جوانب لدينا تحتاج إلى تطوير، ولكن ما لبث أن تبين لنا أن الحملة تتواصل وتتضمن افتراءات وازدواجية معايير.
The point is this. Qatar's human rights record has been subjected to a level of scrutiny not afforded to any of the previous host countries. Why? Because the Western world holds Muslim countries to a hypocritical double standard. None of these questions were raised against Russia when it hosted the World Cup 4 years ago, despite Russia's appalling abuse of religious minorities and homosexuals. Which coincidentally brings me to my next point as it relates to Qatar. Yes, homosexuality is criminalized in Qatar, as it is in all practicality in Putin's Christian Orthodox Russia. But let me state this clearly. I believe gays should be afforded the same basic human rights as everybody else. But I'm not a Muslim, and Qatar is not my country of birth or residence. So what we need to understand here is this, that when it comes to culture and religion, people hold different views and beliefs to you. The key is to be mature about it, accept it, and not throw a tantrum by hurling Islamophobic abuse towards a culture and country you barely understand. To that end, many within the LGBTQ activist community have gone way over the top in their protests against Qatar. Like this guy here, who has promised to shred the equivalent of $10,000 if David Beckham doesn't pull out of his World Cup broadcasting deal, which is an utterly obscene and vulgar protest, given the dire economic situation many Brits find themselves in because of the country's economic malfeasance. It's important to understand that every country has its own set of rules, which all visitors must abide by. For instance, the drinking age in Australia is 18, but in the United States the drinking age is 21. And no matter how much an 18-year-old Australian visitor to the United States might want to complain about America's drinking age laws, he or she just won't be served an alcoholic drink. But the larger problem in the West is always trying to impose its values on the Muslim world, even when our Western values and morals are continually changing and evolving. For instance, same-sex marriage was illegal in Australia only a few years ago. Abortion was legal in the United States for almost 50 years before it became criminalized in dozens of mostly southern states just recently. But more than that, the Western world is in no position to pontificate its moral superiority, given Western-led wars have killed more than 4 million Muslims since 1990. And let me put it another way. I will believe you care about homosexuals in Qatar only at such time you demonstrate that you care about the 2 million non-homosexual Palestinians who are currently locked in a steel cage by the Israeli military in Gaza. Otherwise, your stated concern for human rights in the Middle East is nothing more than an ugly form of moral preening cloaked in Islamophobia. Ultimately, Western critics should stop their compulsive impulse to condemn and politicize everything in the Muslim world. The World Cup is just a football tournament, and Qatar's human rights record is no better or worse than those who are criticizing it. Now play ball. Anyway, that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we kindly ask you please support this endeavor by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWerleman. We can't produce, sustain, and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do. But for now, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and stay blessed.